Hello and welcome to a new series where I'm going to be showcasing some of my learning resources. This week I just started graduate school with my master's in education, and there's been a lot of reading and different literature where it's like 100 to 200 pages a week, which could be a little bit intensive at times. So I like to focus on like an audiobook and the text while I'm reading through it. So today I'm going to show you how you could take any text from any book, digitize it, and then turn it into an audiobook so you could follow along during your reading. Just for reference, this does require you to be on a Windows machine. We're going to be starting off with Windows PowerShell. Open this up, and there's a couple commands that we have to run before we get started. Now you could download the SDK, install it, run through the whole installation via the browser, but instead we're just going to run it through the PowerShell. If you run this command, it's going to install the Google Cloud SDK to a temporary location. You can then follow it up with this command, which will execute the installer, and you could follow the process to get the SDK installed on your machine. Now I'm going to be doing everything in Python, so if you don't have Python yet, you're going to need to install Python. You can see here, once you have it, you could enter the Python console window, and then you could go ahead and do pip install google-cloud-texttospeech. This is going to install that API locally to your machine, so you're going to be able to use these libraries in your code base. From there, we're going to go to cloud.google.com/text-to-speech. I'll have the links for all these in the description down below. Up in this blue button here, it's probably going to say enable API or something similar. You might need to log into your Google account, but once you do, go ahead and hit enable API and then try in console. And then after that, you could go ahead and open up your first project. If you haven't made one yet, I'm going to have a link to the console down below. You're going to have a screen similar to this one. With the Google Cloud API, you have up to $300 in credits when you create a new account. This processing that we're going to be using for this takes up such a small portion that even if you're using a high level model, which we might be in this case, you could translate full books into audiobooks for just like $2 of this $300 free budget. So while I'm in classes and I'm going to be going through maybe 5-10 books every single year, having $300 worth of credit will cover all of my expenses. There will never be anything that I actually have to pay for using this service. That being said, if you don't have a project yet, you might have to go ahead and click create project, my first project, anything like that. Once the project is set, you can go up to this little navigation hamburger, down to I am an admin, and down to service accounts. On this page, you're going to want to navigate to create service account. In here, you can name it whatever you want. Maybe you call it text to speech. In service account ID, it's going to copy the text in here. You can change it if you want. It doesn't matter too much. And from here, if you want to add a description, in case you're going to have multiple of these service accounts, you could distinguish them by their description later on. You're going to want to hit create and continue. And once you're done, you should have your new service account showing up on the service accounts page. From here, go to actions, manage keys, add key, create new key. On the create new key page, you're going to want to select the JSON. You're going to want to download that file locally in a place where you're going to be able to find it. Now with all that set up, we should be ready to start coding. I placed this key.json folder here. You can go ahead and click on your path, copy it, and then you could paste it where we're going to be setting that key's location. All right, now I'm going to be coding in Visual Studio Code. I'm just going to run through what I've set up so far so you can see where this will get you, and we could talk about where we could go from here in the future. Camera's getting a little blurry there. But I'm going to be using Python here. Again, we just have to open up the Google Cloud and import the text-to-speech API. We're also going to be importing OS because I'm going to be reading and writing from files. At the very beginning, we're going to start off by setting our key location. Then I have a function here that is just going to read the text from the file. Nothing crazy here, just opening the file, returning the text, replacing it, converting it to a string, so then it can be parsed out and set to speech. In the text-to-speech function, it takes in two arguments, the file path and the output path that we are going to be passing through it near at the bottom here. Once the program is run, we're going to call that read text from file function on the file path we pass as the argument and set that equal to the text. It's not text, we're going to return error to the user. Then we have to initialize the client. After initializing the client, what we have to do is synthesize the data so it could be processed by the model. Now, here we're actually going to be configuring the voice model. There's plenty of different ones that you could choose from. You could look at the Google Cloud API, but this is going to be more of a British, WaveNet British, so more of a higher quality one that is set to male. And here we're also going to be configuring the audio with a couple things in here, such as speaking rate if we want them to talk slower or faster. We could also customize the pitch if we want them to be talking a little bit lower or higher pitched. Then we're going to actually generate the audio and save the audio file. Here is when we're calling the function. Here, when we're actually calling the function, I have it reading from a text file, so I could go ahead and copy all of the reading into a text file and then have that parse out an output.mp3 file, which we could then listen to. Now, there are some complications with this setup. I think that the model that we're using here only can take in 5,000 bytes of information at once. So there's different ways that you could go around that, where you could use different models. You could use sort of a chain of command method, parsing out different 5,000 byte files, so then it could process and create them. So then you could link them all into one MP3 at the very end. Or again, like mentioned before, you could choose a different model. But let me show you how this works. You can see in our program we have the input file is reading.txt. So if we go to this location where it's pointing to, create a new text document, call it reading.txt. We could open that file and then paste in some text. Go ahead and save that, minimize it. And if we go ahead and execute this code, sorry, quick hiccup there, I had some backslashes instead of forward slashes. So it's reading the reading as like a /r instead of a /r. So this should work now if we go ahead and execute. Open up the file. Now we have speech output.mp3. Let's give it a listen.
The only people for me are the mad ones, the ones who are mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time, the ones who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, burn, burn like fabulous yellow Roman candles exploding like spiders across the stars.
You can start to see the utility of a tool like this for someone who has to go through a lot of reading in a week. It's an easy way to add an extra level of stimulus to, really focus in on what it is that you're reading. Now that's going to be all for this week's episode. Next week, I'm going to be diving further into the DNA config and DNA calibration and all that crazy stuff for MetaHuman. I just want to take this week to kind of break down a few of my learning resources and tools that I've been using to help accelerate my learning. If you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to go over or dive deeper into, please let me know. And as always, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.